Hey students, we are on chapter 18. It is titled The Rock in Dr. Dolittle. Up they got early the next morning out of the silken beds, and they saw that the sun was shining brightly, that the wind was blowing from the south. Jip smelled the south wind for half an hour. Then he came to the doctor, shaking his head. I still don't smell the uncle yet, he said. We must wait until the wind changes to the east. But even when the east wind came that afternoon, the dog could not catch the smell. The little boy was terribly disappointed and began to cry again, saying that no one seemed to be able to find his uncle for him. But all Jip said to the doctor was, "Tell him that when the wind changes to the west, I'll find his uncle, even if he is in China, as long as he is still smelling the same." 3 days they had to wait before the west wind came. This was on a Friday morning, early, just as it was getting light. A fine rainy mist lay on the sea like a thin fog, and the wind was soft and warm and wet. As soon as Jip awoke, he ran upstairs and poked his nose in the air. He got very excited and rushed down again to wake the doctor up. "Doctor, I got it! Doctor, wake up! Listen, I got it! The wind is from the west, and it smells nothing but the uncle. Come upstairs, turn the ship, quick, quick, quick." So the doctor tumbled out of bed and went to the rudder to steer the ship. "Now, I'll go up to the front," said Jip, "and you watch my nose. Whichever way I point, steer the ship the same way. The man cannot be far off, with the smell as strong as this, and the winds all lovely and wet. Now watch me." So all that morning, Jip stood in the front part of the ship, sniffing the wind and pointing the way for the doctor to steer. All the animals and the little boy stood around with their eyes wide open, watching the dog in wonder. At about lunchtime, Jip asked Dab Dab to tell the doctor he was getting worried and wanted to speak to him. So Dab Dab went and fetched the doctor from the other end of the ship, and Jip said to him, "The boy's uncle is starving. We must make the ship go as fast as we can." "How do you know he's starving?" "Because there's no other smell in the west wind. If the man were cooking or eating food of any kind, I would be able to smell it too. But he doesn't even have fresh water to drink. All he has is himself. We're getting near to him all the time because the smell grows stronger every minute. Make the ship go as fast as you can." "All right." The doctor sent Dab Dab to ask the swallows to pull the ship again. So the little birds came down once more, harnessed themselves to the ship with the ropes, and now the boat went bounding through the waves at a terribly fast speed. It went so fast that the fishes in the sea had to jump for their lives to get out of the way so they wouldn't be run over. All the animals got tremendously excited, and they gave up looking at Jip and turned to watch the ocean in front to spy any land or islands where the starving man might be. But an hour, and then another hour, and then another hour went by, and still the ship went rushing on over the same flat sea. No land anywhere came in sight. Now the animals gave up chattering and sat around silent, anxious, and miserable. The little boy grew sad again, and on Jip's face there was a worried look. At last, in the late afternoon, just as the sun was about to go down, Tutu, who was perched on the tip of the mast, startled them all by crying out at the top of his voice, "Jip! Jip! I see a giant rock in front of us! Look! Way out there, where the sky and the water meet! Is the smell coming from there?" And Jip called back, "Yes, that's it! That's where the man is! At last!" And when they got nearer, they could see that the rock was very large as a really big field. But no trees grew on it, no grass, nothing. The rock was smooth and bare, like the back of a tortoise shell. Then the doctor sailed the ship all around the rock, but they didn't see a man anywhere. All the animals tightened up their eyes, and John Dolittle got a telescope from downstairs. But not one living thing could they spy. not even a gull, so that's like a fish, not even a gull or a star or a starfish or a shred of weed, a shred of seaweed. They all stood still and listened, straining their ears for any sound at all. But the only noise they heard was the gentle lapping of the little waves against the sides of their ship. So then they all started calling, "Hello there! Hello!" until their voices were scratchy and their throats hurt. But only the echo came back from the rock. The little boy burst into tears and said, "I'm afraid I'll never see my uncle again. What should I tell everyone when I get home?" But Jip called to the doctor. "He must be there. He must. The smell goes on no further. Sail the ship close to the rock. Let me jump out on it." So the doctor brought the ship as close as he could and let the anchor down. Then he and Jip got out of the ship and went onto the rock. Jip put his nose down close to the ground and began to run all over the place. Have you ever seen a dog do that? It's pretty funny. Up and down he went, back and forth, zigzagging, twisting, doubling, turning. Everywhere he went, the doctor ran right behind him, close at his heels, until he was terribly out of breath. At last, Jip let out a loud bark and sat down. When the doctor came running up to him, he found the dog staring into a big, deep hole in the middle of the rock. "The boy's uncle is down there. No wonder those silly eagles couldn't see him. It takes a dog to find a man." So the doctor got down into the hole, which seemed to be a kind of cave or tunnel running a long way under the ground. Then he struck a match and started to make his way along the dark passage, with Jip following behind. The doctor's match soon went out, and he had to strike another, and then another, and another. And at last, the passage came to an end, and the doctor found himself in kind of a tiny room with walls all of rock. And there, in the middle of the room, his head resting on his arms, lay a man with very red hair, fast asleep. Jip went up and sniffed at something lying on the ground beside him. Yep, this is the uncle. And that is where we stop. We only have 2 more chapters until the book ends, which is pretty crazy. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you're enjoying the story. We'll talk to you soon.